The A-List podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston and get in on the action with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet.
And welcome to the podcast. We have Lauren Williams, Atlanta Hawks beat writer for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. What's up, Lauren? What's going on with you, girl?
What's up? I'm recovering from a bunch of excitement yesterday. Flew in from Miami back to Atlanta today. So we're still sleepy, but we're here. Yeah. We're here.
Yes, you are here.
And we appreciate you hopping on because I know the jet lag is crazy right now. So it really means a lot to have a real in the field perspective of what's going on and who the Celtics are about to play. Sherrod, I interrupted you. My bad.
You keep running.
Yeah, I was actually just telling them I selfishly already planned for this to happen. Last week on the pod, we did mention it would be Atlanta or Miami, and thankfully it's Atlanta. But let's just start with your overall perspective of the Hawks right now. I know it's a restructuring year for the team, but what have you seen over the last few months as they've still tried to figure out what their identity is really?
Yeah, I wouldn't say so much that it's restructuring. I think that they kind of, for the most part, understand that they have some talented guys. They just have to figure out how best to utilize them. And with Quin Snyder in the fold now, I think they'll get a better idea or a better sense of the direction that they want this roster to go. I think over the last 20 games of the regular season, since Snyder took over, he's gotten a pretty good idea of maybe who he wants on the roster, who he doesn't want. And I know the Hawks would like to make sure that things are clarified as far as how much power Quin Snyder has. And he says he just wants to be there to coach. But, it's still hard for me to believe that he won't have some sort of say in what, or some opinion of what he believes a championship caliber roster is. So I think this team is learning, but I wouldn't necessarily say that they're restructuring so much. And it seems that they're finally hitting some kind of stride, and what a time for them to do it now that they're in the postseason.
Yeah. Along those same lines, Lauren, Trae Young had, I thought, a really good game against Miami. 25 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, did a little bit of everything, had his usual high number of turnovers, but that makes him pretty much everyone in the top 10, top 15 in assists. They turn the ball.
Right.
But I'm curious, you touched on Quin Snyder just kind of really evaluating, to some extent, who is going to be around beyond that. Where does Trae fit in that conversation? Because obviously, statistically speaking, he's the best player, but he would not be the first best player on the team to get moved and won't be the last. Where does he fit into, what Quin Snyder's vision is for this team going forward?
I think Quin has a lot of respect for the talent that Trae is, and I think they're still learning each other so much. And so I think going into the offseason, this is going to be a huge offseason to kind of figure out where Trae does fit into what Quin's vision of this system should be. And of course, we know Trae comes with the reputation of being a guy who can get coaches bumped, moved, whatever you want to say,
Coach Killer,
from their post.
I'll say it.
But I think this is going to be a chance for him to show that, he can fit into what a coach who has taken a team like the Utah Jazz to the playoffs multiple times, what that demands. And so this is a chance for him to mature and grow up. And if he doesn't, then, perhaps, like you said, he's a point guard that will be on the move, and it's another team might be able to come in and scoop him up. But it's still hard for me to believe what the market will be for a guy who has the reputation that he does.
And I want to kind of go and dig further into Trae. Like, Trae seems to be like, he came into the league, he was this fresh-faced, Steph Curry-like player, where it was like, oh, how cute. He's just a little guy who shoots 40-footers. Yeah. He was just this guy that everybody loved. And then no one knew how well he was going to do. Then he ended up obviously being very good, doing very well, making all-star teams and leading it. But now there's this, like Sherrod said, kind of coach killer reputation. Is Trae a guy who at this stage, is he about his numbers? Does he want to win? Does he only want to win his way? Is he delusional in terms of his talent? Like, getting to know him over the year, like, how would you type? Is he just a guy who just has had a couple of coaches that just happenstance with Nate McMillan and Lloyd Pierce just didn't get it just didn't work, and both? What kind of guy is Trey? And is he a winner, or is he a guy that's like, listen, I got my 35, 15 assists, I'm good?
I think it's that second to last point that you made where it just might be happenstance that Nate McMillan and Lloyd Pierce just weren't the right fit for the type of player that he is. Now, that goes back to my point, though, that if he and Quin Snyder can't figure out what exactly is the best way to bring out the best in him, then I could see him being the guy on the move versus Quin Snyder, who the Hawks went out convinced to come in with 20 or so games left in the season to try and get them into a perennial championship winning team, or at least a perennial playoff team. So I think he has a lot to prove right now, not so much as what he can do stats wise, because I think we know what that is. I think more so where Trey's sense of growth is being that mature leader that we just haven't necessarily seen just yet. And that doesn't necessarily mean that he has to be a rah-rah guy that rallies his team around him, but he has to be the guy that can get everybody to buy in to what the coach is selling. And I think because he's the face of the franchise, he has a lot of pressure to rise to that occasion. And he just hasn't done that yet. And I think it's just happenstance that the circumstances ended up being that the two coaches that were his first couple coaches in the league ended up getting bounced. But, he's 24, if you think about it, 2 years removed from college. And most of us didn't even know who we were at 24 years old. So you want to give him a little bit of grace to kind of mature a little bit and figure things out. But, the time is ticking on that aspect of him being the franchise player, face of the franchise of the Atlanta Hawks.
The exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.